If you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? Yo. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking how? Everybody's choking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, loud. Snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes rabbit. He choke. He's so mad, but he won't give up. Daddies, he know he won't have it. He knows his whole back to these ropes. It don't matter, he's dope. He knows that, but he's broke. He's so stacked that he knows when he goes back to this mobile home, that's when it's back to the lab again, yo. This old rhapsody better go back to this moment and hope it don't pass him.
Listen, we can talk about the flag, but let's talk about... Wait.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media Live. As always, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Retweet, share, like, thumbs up, subscribe, follow, share, like, retweet, subscribe. You know it. Hit every button. And let's continue to spread the word as we continue on this journey this summer of Trending in the AM, where we try to find different things to talk about. Joe Girardi was not fired. So I promise, if Joe Girardi isn't fired, we will not talk baseball today. If he's not fired tonight, we will not talk baseball tomorrow. We are going to keep the conversation away from the depressing-ass Phillies for at least the next 2 mornings. I am Phil Stiefel, your host, at Beard of Knowledge on Twitter. Make sure you shoot me a follow. Joining me to start the show is my main man, Scotty Drowned, at Scotty Drowned on Twitter, Mr. NBA Talks, Turf Talk guy. Got to bring him in to talk NBA. Today we'll do NBA. Got the NBA Finals starting today. We'll talk basketball tomorrow. Mark, Jason will be back. We'll talk football. But, Scotty, when it's time to talk basketball, you have to be the guy that comes on. Good morning.
Good morning. Of course, I'm happy to be here on Trending in the AM, the best morning show in the business now. I'm always excited to talk NBA. We got the NBA Finals starting tonight, and it's a pretty solid matchup. We can start with the dismal Sixers if you like.
We can talk, if you want to talk positive first, we could talk NBA Finals first too. It really doesn't matter.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't mind talking to Sixers, man. I'm still in there.
No, man, it's all right. I mean, I figure we got a special guest at 9 a.m. from the Score, Esfandair Baraheni. We're gonna see if I pronounced that right. When I've been practicing, listen to it said. Esfandair Baraheni from the Score. He'll be joining us to get a different perspective on the finals. And also, he used to cover the Raptors. That's where he got his start. Yeah. So we're going to have to give him a little hate for Patrick Siakam ruining the Sixers' chances of playing right now. The Sixers should be playing right now if it wasn't for his Toronto Raptors. So we'll give him a little shit for that. But he'll be joining us at 9 a.m. But yeah, let's talk Sixers first. Then we'll spend 15 minutes talking Sixers, spend 15 minutes on the NBA Finals, and then Baraheni will be here. So, Scotty, obviously, I haven't seen you since the season ended. We haven't done a show together since the Sixers season, unfortunately, ended in disappointment again. What as soon as the inevitable happened and the final second ticked off the clock, what was your initial emotional reaction to the unfortunate way the Sixers season ended?
My initial reaction was, just thinking, I can't put too much into this. Like, if they're not willing to go out there and put 120% into their own game and what they're trying to accomplish, then I can't sit here and make excuses. I can't sit here and talk shit on the Miami Heat. There's none of that. I ended the series with way more respect for the Miami Heat than I had for the Philadelphia 76ers. And the biggest thing for me coming out, specifically that game 6, the end of the series, the effort. I mean, I just remember specific moments where there's loose balls, and I don't know if it, we can talk about that for sure with Doc Rivers. I don't know if it's coaching where he tells them to get back on defense, over everything else. You know what I mean? Where you have guys, I remember specifically there was a loose ball and Tobias Harris just didn't even go for it. He just started heading back on defense. And I'm just like, And then they come out of the game. The first things they're saying in the locker room and in the post-game press conferences is, we lacked effort tonight. That's self-incriminating. You can't lack effort in the second round of the playoffs in a must-win game on your home court. And once you start hearing stuff like that floating around the locker room after a game, I think once again, and you almost, I find myself coming to this realization, like there needs to be an overhaul. Like they've tried it though. Like they've tried to do an overhaul and it hasn't worked. So I don't know. I'm a little confused, honestly, Phil.
Yeah, I'm confused too, because basically what you're talking about is kind of what we've been talking about for the last week or two about the Phillies. It's a culture issue.
Yeah.
And it starts at the top. It starts with Daryl Morey. It starts with Glenn Rivers. Because again, we don't call him Doc on this show, Scotty.
Yeah.
I haven't been on the show in a while. It's Glenn. Okay. It's Glenn Rivers. He's lost the title Doc. It starts at the top with those two guys and the effort level. I don't know if I want to call out Joel Embiid for effort level. I mean, he obviously didn't have the effort level there, but playing with, he did. For anybody that didn't notice, it kind of went fast across the bottom, but he did have his surgery 2 days ago, so his hand's been repaired and stuff like that. He should be good to go. But between the hand issue, between the concussion he was playing with and whatnot, I don't know if I want to question it. It's kind of tough, but you could damn well question Tobias Harris's effort, James Harden's effort. Even Tyrese Maxey, Matisse, you can question every person's effort, and it all comes down to the culture of this team. But then yet, Daryl Morey comes out, ownership comes out, they give the full vote of support to Glenn Rivers for next season, that we're going to try to keep everybody. We're basically going to try to run it back and just tweak it. That's not going to solve the culture issue, which means then next year at this point, instead of the Sixers playing in the NBA Finals, we'll be talking about the Bucks or the Celtics or somebody else playing in the Eastern Conference. So, is it simple that if there is no change at the top with Morey and Rivers, that this is just going to be more of the same?
I don't want to believe that, right? I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that if they bring in, some athletic wings like we've been begging for half a season, right? Like since they acquired Harden, we just asked them to do something else to address the athleticism on the wing part of the team. I like to think that if they can improve the bench and hopefully Harden, gets this offseason, gets healthy and gets in better shape. I'm trying to be optimistic with the Sixers, but there is always that doubt that lingers in the back of your mind, but it's still it's still Glenn Rivers. It's still Daryl Morey who
a bit of training to not say Doc.
It's still Daryl Morey who you've pounded the table and it's true at this point. Like we've seen it now, in Houston, and now we're getting into his third season in Philly. So you've had maximum talent both years in Philly now as well, and we're still getting to the same spot. So there's still got it. I mean, it's just natural. It's got to be there, that doubt. And I did want to touch on your point about Joel Embiid because I know it's wrong to incriminate him for effort because he's out there, like you said, totally beat up. But what I would say and the way I would phrase it is that's got to be the next part of his game that he has to master. And you think about ways, how can Joel Embiid get better? How can he get better than what he has been? And, he's had back-to-back MVP caliber seasons. That's it for me. You have to master being able to channel your emotions and channel them better as a leader, because even if he's not out there at 100% in the playoffs, which nobody is,
right?
You can't have your head down out there as the leader of your team. You have to always be attent. You always have to be looking around, making sure other guys are being taken care of. And I think that's the part of his game. And I know that's not natural to have that, just inclined to lead and lead in that way. But I think that's the next part of his game. As he mentioned after the game, he thinks they need a guy like PJ Tucker. I agree with that. That's a mentality thing. You need that toughness. But I also think Embiid needs to incorporate a little bit of that mentality into himself, and I know that's not natural. It's asking a lot. But I think that's the next way that he can take his game to the next level.
So how can the team take it to the next level then? Because, I'm looking at, as I'm getting ready for this, conversation about the NBA Finals, I'm looking at the Celtics and the Warriors. And you could even go back to the Heat and, even Dallas. And what these teams that made even, the conference finals, what these teams have that the Sixers don't have. You mentioned, 3-and-D, wing guys, athletic players like that. You look at the Raptors who gave us a fight.
Yeah.
All they have is wing guys. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Pretty much they're made up of 7, 6'8" to 6'9" guys that are just wing players. I'm trying to find a logical way that I could make this Sixers team better without taking many steps backwards. Because you got 3 more years of probably prime Joel Embiid. I really don't see the answer because of the James Harden part of it. I really don't see an answer to really truly finding a combination of guys that is going to make this work.
Yeah, and I think just as far as what you're seeing, even with the Miami Heat, down the line, Toronto Raptors, like you said, the Boston Celtics, Dallas Mavericks, all of these teams, you look across the board. Let's just say the Celtics, for instance. Yes, they have Jason Tatum, they have Jaylen Brown, they have star power. They have Marcus Smart, who's a defensive player of the year. They have Robert Williams, who's a nice young talent. You have Al Horford, who's refound himself in Boston. You have Grant Williams, who's a role player that they groomed themselves. Guys like even guys down the line like Peyton Pritchard, who are contributing throughout this playoff run. They traded for a guy in Derek White from San Antonio. So they have just built so much depth there. And then you move over even to a team like Dallas, where you would say, who's the second star to Luka, right? Maybe Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie. These guys aren't second star calibers, but you got so much depth across the board. You have so much shooting across the board that they were able to get to the Western Conference Finals. Guys like Dorial Finney-Smith, these guys, and that's where I worry, because these guys, one, don't grow on trees, these type of role players that can contribute to championship success. And two, the Sixers aren't good at developing talent, as we can see. Matisse has not developed. Korkmaz has not developed. Shake has not developed. And these are the guys that we need to be those guys. So, it's going to be a long and it's going to be a hard road. And what's going to end up happening if they are able to flip a guy like Tobias Harris, who everybody's pointing to, which Tobias Harris had a decent playoff run. I think you got to take advantage of that and try to move him for multiple pieces. That's asking a lot, right? Like who's going to do that for Tobias Harris in that contract? So then you're going to have to attach a young guy like Matisse to him and maybe a draft pick or two. And then you hope that you get like 2 role players, right? 2 or 3, maybe 2 role players and a guy that can fill a bottom end bench spot. So it's really grim as far as what they can do. Now, they did get lucky as far as Brooklyn deferring that pick to 2023. So now you can add young talent in that way, where I think there's a lot of solid prospects. And I know, once again, it's that thing in the back of your head. It's Doc Rivers, because you have prospects in this range of the draft that the Sixers could grab. I mean, look at Tyrese Maxey, for instance. You have guys that are ready to go in this part of the draft. Daryl Morey will have no problem selecting them, I feel like. But will they get run? And will they get run early when they need it and when they need to develop? And that's going to be, another knock on Doc, or on Glenn, I should say. I got to get used to saying
it. It's so hard to train yourself to say Glenn. After 25 years of calling him Doc, it's really hard. So what do you do? What do you do with the James Harden situation? Because I've been talking about it so far this offseason. I mean, to me, I can't find a way. You're not going to be able to sign and trade him to a team and get something great. Yeah. You shouldn't give him a max extension, because I just don't think it's necessary. But you don't. You kind of hurt your team for next year if he plays on that 1-year, $47 million deal, because that'll hurt the team next year, financially speaking. So are you okay with trying to find like a comfortable middle ground, like a 3-year, something like Kyle Lowry got in Miami, like a 3-year, $90 million deal, which sounds like a lot, but I guess big picture, it's not. I don't know. What would you do with the James Harden situation at this point?
That one, it's tough, man. I'm not going to lie to you, and I do think it's one of those situations, kind of like you hinted at. The Sixers have made their bed, and now they literally have to lie in it with James Harden, and I guess in my eyes, the best case scenario originally was for him to opt in to next year. That way you just have him for 1 year and see what he's like. But there's a caveat to that where, one, like you said, it's $47 million. So it takes up a huge part of the cap. But then also you just have it lingering. Is Harden going to walk in free like all season? So that wears on teams. That wears on teams. And I'm not sure that you want to do that. So kind of resorting to what you mentioned, I'm not giving him a max contract, not willfully. I mean, if your back's against the wall and you find yourself and you have to, because they've put themselves in this situation before, right? Where you have to give Tobias a max contract to keep him. So it may come down to that. Now, the rumors are that James Harden is open to taking a discount to make the team better. I would love to see that. That would be the ultimate stripe on James Harden that shows that he wants to win a championship, right? Prove everybody wrong. Take a little bit less, right? We're talking in tens of millions here. Take a little bit less, So yeah, I would say that, just as you mentioned, the 2 to 3 year, I guess like an extension. I would say a 2-year extension on top of the 1 year next year, so 3 years total. And then anywhere from 90 to 95, 96 million, 32, 33 million a year. I think that's fair.
If it doesn't work out,
it's not the greatest, but
that's not like an impossible traded contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You got a 5-year, $250 million supermax there, and
You're
then
not getting off that.
Joel, if he plays well, that's gonna be a tough deal to trade. You get 3 years, 95 even. You get 2 years left that you got to trade. Teams can make that work. You know what I mean?
You can make that happen.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the NBA Finals here. Got about 10-15 minutes till our special guest joins us here on the I Have No Sponsor hotline. So when the NBA Finals, when the Celtics finally beat the Heat in Game 7, the NBA Finals was set. Celtics versus Warriors. Outside of the back of your head, hatred for Al Horford, because I know the first thing I thought of was Al Horford to the damn finals. God, what the hell? But outside of that, when you heard the finals matchup was finally set, first thought that came into your head.
First thought that came into my head was like, wow, Steph Curry and Clay and Draymond somehow found themselves back in the NBA Finals once again. Excuse me, after the Klay Thompson back-to-back injuries, after the grueling season that they just had. Like, they were beat up all season as well. There was guys in and out. They've developed young guys like Jordan Poole. Andrew Wiggins is having like the season of his life right now. And it just seems like the stars are aligning for the Golden State Warriors again. And I just have to kind of give kudos to that organization for, one, sticking with those guys for so long. Not many organizations are willing to go out on that limb, especially like Klay Thompson. He was on an expiring contract when he was injured, and they still gave him that money. And now he's, taking them back to the finals. You look at KD walking away from that organization a few years ago, and everybody's like, well, what do the Warriors do now? He was the best player. I think Steph Curry's had one of his best playoff performances so far this season. Like, this is the best I've seen Steph Curry look. When you see him going head-to-head with Luka Doncic in the Western Conference Finals and out-dueling him, that is pretty significant in my eyes, especially at the age that Steph Curry is at. But, yeah, that was the first thing that came to my mind. The second thing, I just have this gut-wrenching feeling that the Celtics are going to win the championship, man. I really do. I have that feeling. It seems, I said the stars are aligning for Golden State. I think it's happening even more for the Boston Celtics and everything they got going on there.
We're going to get to the Celtics in a second because I got some thoughts, because I kind of have the same feeling as you. So when the first thing I thought of was, when I was with a previous network, I had the pleasure of having Chris Jenkins, Villanova, star, on a show, and we were chit-chatting on the show, and we were battling because he was saying that he thinks Steph Curry is one of, if not the best point guard of all time. And this was about 2 years ago, okay? And when this interview, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, I don't know. I really got to think about it. He's like, no, there's no thinking about it. That's how good Steph Curry is. And then I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, he made the finals again. this could put a fifth ring on his finger. If he wins a fifth title, which I don't know if he's going to win it. I don't know. That Celtics team, we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
If he gets a fifth ring on his finger and goes 5-1 in finals out of his 6 final appearances, I guess it's time to consider Steph Curry. So as much as there's legacies on the line and stuff like that when you get to this point in the season, this might solidify, if he can win another title, Steph Curry is the best point guard, one of the top 10 players of all time. You got to start putting some credit. You know, everyone talks about Kobe and LeBron and, you know, all these guys that are just below Michael Jordan. Well, I think it's time to start considering Steph Curry in that category. Am I wrong for thinking that?
I don't think so, man. I honestly don't. And I know, you know, the point guard position talk is so hard to measure because it's really just based off of opinions. Like, it depends what you like. I could sit here and tell you that, you know, Steph Curry is one of the best players of all time, but he's, you know, not a top 5 point guard because he's one of the best shooters, right? He's not like a Chris Paul maestro of the game. But it's not all about that. If you just look at him simplistically as a player and for what he is, and then you just classify him as a point guard because that's what he plays on his team, right? He doesn't need to fulfill what you think a point guard is, per se. So, no, it's a great point when you think about Steph Curry holistically. He had that, you know, that knock against him for KD coming to Golden State and kind of taking the reins, and he's kind of bounced back from that and surpassed it. And, you know, my worry was that because you saw Jordan Poole coming on late in the season, you saw these other guys on the team, and, you know, you saw Steph, he was trying to get back into shape. He was trying to get healthy at the beginning of the playoffs. And I was worried, you know, I was like, man, they're looking good and they're going to win. And then Steph isn't going to get the credit that he's due again. No, he turned it up a notch in the second round against Memphis. And from there, he's been lights out. And like I said, I think this is the best he's looked. And at this age, it's time to start talking about him with those guys. I mean, he has changed the game that much to the point where he was already in like the Allen Iverson category for me as far as like changing the game, right? Just completely changing the landscape of the NBA. But now we're talking about greatness, just pure greatness when we're talking about MJ, Kobe, you know, down the line, LeBron. He's got to be mentioned. It's as simple as that. The accolades that he's accomplished, and, you know, whether you like him, whether you like the Warriors or not, the numbers just simply don't lie at this point.
Yeah, I think this would solidify it, like you said. You know, Durant comes, then he goes, and then Steph could come back after last year and everything that went down last year, come back and win another title this year. I think that would solidify him. And I love the way you put it. You phrase that with the whole, he might not be what you think a point guard should be, but he has revolutionized the game. How many NBA MVP players have 4 rings and don't get at least in that conversation? Every guy, if you said a player had MVP or 2 trophy and had 4 titles, scoring titles, you know, 3-point titles, everything, records galore, every single other one of those people would be considered, or at least in the conversation, as a top 10 or 12 player of all time.
Yeah.
If Curry doesn't really get that talk, and I think a 5th title definitely will make sure a lot more people put him in that conversation as one of the all-time greats.
Why do you think it is that you know, that appreciation or that you know, respect is like lacked with Steph? Why do you think that you know, kind of across the board? Because you just never hear him talked about with the greats. You know, there will be, you know, Steph Curry fans and like stands, you know what I mean? But
I think it comes down to what you said, the way he plays the game, which I think that's disrespectful because the way he's played the game has revolutionized the game.
Right.
You know, every guard now wants to be like Steph Curry. I mean, Trae Young doesn't play the way he plays, or at least the way he plays doesn't get him in the league.
Yeah.
If Steph Curry doesn't set that precedent of being that guy, just pull up wherever you want, knock down shots whenever you want. You know, I think he deserves the respect. I think it comes down to the way he plays the game.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because it's not like he plays the game poorly. There are no more Chris Paul type point guards. We're never going to see those type point guards anymore, or at least very rarely. So, you know, I think people need to realize that what a point guard is now going forward is what Steph Curry is. So, and it's all because of him. So it's kind of crazy.
Because I mean, in today's NBA, it's all about spacing the floor. I mean, spacing the floor, keeping the ball moving, get the ball up the court, and score. Like that. That's what the NBA is holistically. And Steph Curry, he's changed the game in that respect. We can pound the table for that all day. You look across the board. You mentioned Trey. Look at Dame. Steph has made it like okay to shoot from half court and just do that normally. Now you guys got doing it. You got guys doing it regularly, and it's pretty amazing. But it is crazy when you really sit down and talk about Steph Curry and what he's done and just his career holistically, separate from the Warriors, right? Like obviously, he's been with the Warriors his whole career, but he has his own career that he's built up here and what he's come from. So. You have to give him some respect.
So onto the Celtics side of the equation. You said it. You kind of think that the Celtics might be able to win this series. So I was watching SportsCenter as I was on my breakfast, my coffee this morning, and they put up a stat. I think I said it right. Brown and Tatum, they're both 25 or younger. They could be the first team to win a title with their top two scorers being under 25 years old. Can they? I mean, I'm going to be heartbroken. I mean, I'm not betting this series. I'll just tell you. I'm not betting like who's going to win this series because I'm so torn. And you talk about Al Horford being, that hatred from his time in Philly. But, man, the Jason Tatum will always just be a smack in the face of Sixers fans because of the whole Fultz thing. But, man, you can't really hate Jason Tatum other than the fact that he's a Sixer or, Celtic.
Yeah.
Can two guys like Tatum and Brown that are so young win an NBA title? In their first try, their first time in the finals.
And maybe the gut feeling that the Celtics are going to win for me, I think it may stem from what you said there, is that it's just so close. And, holistically, you would think that this more experienced Warriors team should be the favorite against Boston. But as I look at the matchup down the line, even, past Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the Celtics have a strong chance at winning this series. And what it comes down to is when you have, as we've mentioned earlier in the show about role players, these guys that are built to support their stars. That's what guys like Grant Williams are. They protect guys like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Excuse my dog if he starts barking there. Of course. But no, I think whenever you have a guy like Jason Tatum who can take over the game at any point, and you have that supporting cast that has been able to lift him to this point in the season, right? Don't get me wrong, Jason Tatum's the leader of this team. He's lifting them as well, but their support has allowed him and this team to get where they are today. And I think once you get to that big stage and the lights are the brightest, it's guys like Jason Tatum. And there's guys on Golden State that are the same exact way, but they're going to play their best and they're going to give you the best chance to win. And I think when you get down to tight games in this series and you have just that dynamic scorer like Jason Tatum, who he doesn't just rely on shooting, right? Like he can get to the paint, he can get to the foul line. He's just like the prototype. He's like the prototype of what you would want an NBA player to be in this day and age. His size, his stature, the way he plays, he can shoot from the outside, he facilitates, he plays defense.
The confidence.
The confidence, yeah. He's a leader at this point. Yeah. At this point in his career, he knows what he has to do to lead this team. And I think they really can win it. I think with their style of basketball, which is just physical, playing defense. They were the best team, the best defensive team in the league. That wins championships when you have a scorer the caliber of Jason Tatum. And then I'm not even going to, sit here and forget about Jaylen Brown. That guy can drop 30 on you as well at any time. So you got options there, and you got the leadership with Al Horford. You got the leadership support with Marcus Smart. It's a mentality thing. It's a culture. And I think Boston fits the nod there as far as going up against Golden State. It's going to be interesting.
Awesome. So joining us now on the I Have No Sponsor hotline is the great, and I've practiced again here, Esfandair Baraheni. Did I say that right? Esfandair Baraheni?
You did. Yes, you did. You nailed it.
I think it's spot on there. He worked.
How you
He
guys doing?
covers the NBA for at just S Baraheni on Twitter. I just came across. We just got hooked up during the NBA playoffs here, and I got to say, man, even though your Raptors ruined the Sixers season, you've been a fantastic follow, and I've enjoyed your content covering the NBA here since we've hooked up here.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I gotta apologize because the last time I was supposed to be on here, I just passed out. I don't know how you guys are so excited and awake in the morning. It's just like
Dude,
not me. I can't be a morning person. But anyway,
dude, I'm the only one. Scotty joins me once a month because he can't get up.
I'm not a morning person. Don't get it twisted. I do my shows in the evening.
Let me tell you something. It takes a lot of coffee and a lot of energy to do this in the morning here. But thanks for your time. So we're talking NBA Finals here. Obviously, your Raptors fell a little short. Our Sixers fell a little short. But as I asked Scotty, and I'll ask you the same exact question, as soon as the Celtics beat the Heat there in Game 7, and you knew the Warriors-Celtics was your NBA Finals, what was the first initial thought that went through your head?
First initial thought, Steph Curry is winning his first Finals MVP. That's probably the first thing I thought of. I don't know. My initial thought was, all right, it's really cool to see the Celtics end up getting to this point because of the amount of times that they failed or like haven't been able to get over the hump. And now that you see them kind of get over that, it's kind of cool because they've drafted all their guys, right? They tried to do the attempt of going and buying or trading for a Kyrie Irving, going and signing a Gordon Hayward, and at the end of the day, it was like the guys who stuck around, the guys who they drafted, right? The Marcus Smart, the Jason Tatum, the Jaylen Browns of the world. So I like that journey. I like the fact that like something that you build authentically got to the NBA Finals and you got to that point. That's something that's cool to me. But yeah, I guess my initial thought was Steph Curry is winning his first Finals MVP.
We just kind of had that conversation because my first thought wasn't the Finals MVP. It was this solidifies Steph Curry as one of, because you never hear Steph Curry in the all-time great conversation. He's got 4 titles. This could be his 5th ring. Yeah. And if they get it, and if he dominates, if he wins an NBA Finals MVP, I mean, you have to have that conversation of Steph Curry as one of those top 10 greatest players of all time. And we don't know why he's not in that conversation already.
I feel like he is. I feel like anybody who's like denying that is kind of just they're lost in the sauce. They don't know what they're talking about. I really do think he is in the conversation. If you're just denying yourself of something like that, you're denying yourself of the privilege of enjoying basketball at this point. Like I don't know. There is a conversation to be had about Steph Curry being top 10 all time. I would argue I'm working on a video today about it, but I would argue there's an argument for him being the best point guard of all time. Even though I think Magic Johnson still probably edges him out, it's a conversation now. This is an undersized dude from Davidson College who ended up potentially being the greatest point guard of all time. Like, you got to respect that, So that's my situation on Steph.
I was telling Phil, regarding just Steph Curry and like the mantra and like the unwillingness, and maybe it's just what we hear around us, like you said, anybody that's really into the NBA and it appreciates basketball, appreciates Steph Curry, but like him just not fitting what, certain people's opinions of what a point guard is supposed to be, right? Has them hesitant to put him at the top of that mountain of point guards. But when you just simply look at what he's done for the game, I mean, it's ridiculous. And the numbers don't lie as well. It's not just how he's changed the game, but also just what he's been able to accomplish. But I just wanted to hop on what you were saying, just about kind of the Celtics storyline. And I just wanted to add, the Ime Udoka head coach, like first year. And then, you talk about the turnaround mid-season where things were falling apart. People were talking about splitting up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and like these 2 wings, there's these 2 young guys, it's not going to work. And just to turn it around and become literally the best team in the NBA since the All-Star break, at least, it's been incredible to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, like, I don't know if it would be the most remarkable turnaround in NBA history. I'd have to go back and check if there's been other ones. But the fact 19-19 on New Year's Eve, and then I think they rallied off like 37-12 for the rest of the year. They ended up being the number 1 defense. Like, That right there is unreal. Like, it's a flip of the switch. It's like they just turned something else on. They realized something. And yeah, I mean, credit to them. Credit to Ime Udoka. Credit to like the guys figuring it out. I remember I think I saw Jason Tatum have a quote where it's like that loss they had against RJ Barrett and the Knicks with the game winner, that kind of fueled them to be like, all right, we gotta take this serious. Something's not right. And yeah, it's cool to see teams do that. Figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Scotty, I think I had you on the show here once, back in the middle of the season. We were talking, how can we get Jaylen Brown to the Sixers for Ben Simmons? Because that's how much talk of splitting that team up was. So then the Celtics are obviously the underdog in this series. What do the Celtics got to do to beat the Warriors? Because, like, me and Scotty are both kind of like, we're on the fence. Like, we don't want to make a prediction on these finals because you got Steph Curry. Obviously they should win this finals. But something is in our gut both telling us that the Celtics have a chance of pulling this out.
Well, I don't know. Are they supposed to win this finals? Because you guys see the indicators, right? It's like the Celtics are favored by all the BPIs. I'm pretty sure they're like they have an 80-something% chance. I saw that yesterday. It seems like the numbers are leaning with the Boston Celtics, but then in our minds.
The betting odds are going towards the Warriors. So
right.
I look at the betting odds, and I see those numbers, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, the Celtics should win this easily.
Yeah.
Or I mean, the Warriors should win this easily.
Yeah, I mean, I think like from a Celtics perspective, you got to hang your hat on your defense, right? It's what got you here in the first place. It's your bread and butter. I think the one wrinkle to that is that the Warriors, the style of play that they have offensively, this egalitarian move the ball, let's share it thing, is not exactly the perfect type of defense. It's not exactly the perfect type of offense that the Celtics defense wants to stop, because they switch a bunch. They are switch heavy. They like to essentially like stop you before you can get into those actions. But the thing is, because the Warriors move the ball so much, it's tough for them to really settle down on defense and like harp in and like be like, all right, cool, this is the mismatch we're going to focus on, or this is the matchup we're going to focus on. But yeah, I don't know. I think like offensively, my biggest question with the Celtics is, all right, cool, are the other players, the other guys, going to hit their shots, right? Is Grant Williams going to have one of those games where he drops 6 threes? Is Peyton Pritchard going to chip in a couple times with a couple threes? Is, Al Horford going to have that insane rejuvenation, fountain of youth? He went to the Lazarus pit and came back. Like, is he going to have that type of game? I don't know. But I think that's the biggest question is, like, are those role players going to show up for the Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned Al Horford's fountain of youth, and you just kind of threw me all off again.
I know, man. I'm sorry.
When he dunked on Giannis, I mean, I didn't know what to think, man.
I literally am still speechless on that. I think that was more points scored in one game than he had the entire season with the Sixers. I really do. I mean, it's still, every time somebody mentions that to me, I stop and I pause and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I really don't. So then, I don't know if you're a betting man. I don't even know if you could bet up there in Toronto and in Canada or not. Would you lay your hard-earned money on the Celtics to win this series?
I'm not a betting man. We can bet in Canada though. And I would look, I think if you're a betting person, you're obviously trying to look for the best odds. So if the Warriors are favored, you probably want to go with the Celtics and, just kind of not risk it all, but like put your money on something that's valuable that way, right? I think it's good. It's going to be a close enough series to the point where it's decided in 6 or 7 games. I know you guys didn't want to make a prediction, but like I really do.
Oh, we are making predictions today. Don't worry, we are doing that. Yeah. We don't want to, but we are making predictions.
Yeah, but I think this goes 6 or 7. I think there's a really good chance this goes 7, and when it's like that, it's a toss up, right? It's whatever role players show up for you. It's whichever guys are hitting their shots, the calls obviously going your way, like. A lot of that factors into a series that's this close. I do think it'll be close. I see a lot of people saying Warriors in 5 or Celtics in 5, and that's not going to happen. I'm sorry to disappoint you. It's not going to be a quick series.
Is there any merit to? I'm sitting here thinking, I'm trying to formulate my answer on what's going to happen, and the Warriors, they've had 2 series end in 5 games, I believe. The Celtics have just played back-to-back 7-game series. I'm kind of using that as the final tipping point, maybe, to pick the Warriors to win this series, because maybe the Celtics are worn out by Game 6 and Game 7 of this series. I don't know. I'm kind of using that as the final tipping point there.
I'll say this to your point on that. That actually shows me how, in my opinion, inconsistent the Celtics have been this postseason. If we remember, I think it was Game 4 against Milwaukee. They were up maybe 15 going into the fourth quarter. They lost that game, lost the lead. They ended up not going up 3-1. Obviously, they ended up winning that series. But it's that inconsistent stuff that you just can't have. You can't afford that against the Golden State Warriors. You can't afford that type of game. We saw Game 7 against Miami. They were up whatever with 3 minutes left, and Miami came back and kind of – you can't have these lapses. That is not possible in the NBA Finals. I trust the Warriors to not have these lapses more, even though they've had their fair share of blowouts, right? They had that Memphis game that was disgusting, and the what was it, Game 4 of the Mavericks game where they kind of lost it as well. But I think at the end of the day, you trust the Warriors to figure it out a lot more, and it's the inconsistency of Boston that kind of gets me going. So.
And that's honestly a great point about the inconsistency of Boston. Just thinking back to, the Eastern Conference Finals, every other game was a blowout up until Game 7. And, it took historically bad nights for Miami shooting wise. Some of those nights the Celtics weren't shooting much better and they were still able to win those games. Warriors are going to always come out. They're going to be able to score points. They're going to have multiple guys that can get into the 20s in the scoring column. So it is a whole different ball game. And that's a great point that you put out there.
Yeah. So, it's weird. I said to Scotty before on other shows that I didn't think the Heat were more talented than the Sixers. I also don't think the Heat were more talented than the Celtics. And the fact that they were able to push it to 7 games just goes to show that maybe the Celtics, they're just not as good as the Warriors. I really think that the Sixers, if all things were equal and there was no injuries, could have even beaten the Celtics in a 7-game series. So they just don't. The Eastern Conference was a tougher conference. You had the Celtics, you had the Bucks, you had the Sixers, the Heat. You had a lot of really good teams, but I don't think any of them are at the same level as the Warriors, as that elite championship, experience type team that they have there. So I think all things considered, I think that makes you lean a little bit more towards, Golden State being able to win the series.
Oh, go ahead.
No, the only thing I was going to say is, and people forget that the Warriors defense is also elite. Yes, the Celtics are the number 1 defense, but the Warriors are the number 2 defense right behind them by maybe a 0.5 of a defensive rating. It's not that big of a difference. And they've been a very, very good defense. I'm pretty sure for halfway through the season before Boston started turning it up, they were the number 1 defense undisputed. It was far and away. They were running away with it. So I don't know. I think from that point, it's these teams are so not evenly matched, but they're so diametrically opposed. One thing that the other team is good at, the other team isn't good at, and it's going to be fun to see these type of that clash of styles.
All right, so moving on here for a second here, since we got you on here, and like I said, you know a lot about the NBA. You cover the NBA for the Score. The Sixers are in a really tough spot here coming into it. Obviously, we're in this tough spot because of you and your Toronto Raptors. Patrick Siakam is enemy number 1.
I've heard.
Philly, obviously, right now.
I've heard.
Obviously. Yeah. But now the Sixers are in a tough spot. They want to get to where the Celtics are. They want Joel Embiid needs that opportunity to be on the big stage in the NBA Finals. But they're stuck with this. As Scotty said, they made their bed. They're going to probably have to lie in it. They're stuck with James Harden now. Yeah. What do you do if you're the Sixers? As an outsider that's not in Philly, listen to this talk every single day. What do you do with the James Harden situation in the Sixers?
You pray that an offseason you pray is the initial answer to this. You really do gotta get down and pray and hope that his hamstrings heal up and become bionic, because that's the only thing, in my opinion, that's gonna say, unless Tyrese Maxey ends up being an all-star next year, which, by the way, I could totally see happening. I could very much so see happening. But unless that happens, unless maybe another draft guy ends up popping up, I don't know. I really don't know. Look, you don't need the James Harden to pass for the Sixers team. I think you guys could agree with that. You don't necessarily need the 30-point score, the guy who's going to dominate, possessions, et cetera, et cetera. You don't necessarily need that. but you need a guy who is, one, willing to not be that guy anymore, right? And two, I guess understand the fact that, like, look, I have to find ways to contribute elsewhere, which is moving off ball more and figuring out ways to be effective off ball, which is getting better as a catch and shoot player and figuring out that aspect of his game, getting back to, like, as much as it's crazy to say, getting back to like the OKC Harden roots, where it's like, okay, I'm playing off of this guy. I'm playing off of Joe Embiid. So I don't know. Those are like different mentality things that I feel like are going to go into consideration. But first and foremost, get healthy, brother.
Yeah.
Find some hamstrings. Do the hamstring curls.
He can have mine. He can. They might be stretched out.
Literally have ours.
Literally have my hamstring right now.
I'll say this, man. I really do. As much as there is so much animosity between Raptors fans and Sixers fans, I really do feel for Sixers fans who have waited a long time in this process to see Embiid get to a certain point in his career. He's a phenomenal player. He's entertaining as hell. Like, he's one of the funniest players in the league. You want to see a guy like that successful. And I don't know. I really hope, figures it out. I hope Harden got the
question is,
right.
and mind you, all Philadelphia is listening right now. All Philadelphia fans are listening. Okay, should Joel, if this is you better think about your answer because of who's listening. Should Joel Embiid have won the MVP?
Oh man, y'all gonna get me in trouble.
I'm setting you up for an answer.
Yeah, you got me in trouble. Look, I think you know what? I'm a cop out. All three were very deserving. All three were very deserving NBA MVPs. I said it like a million times on Twitter. I would not have cared if Giannis won it, if Jokic won it, if Embiid won it. I thought genuinely this was like one of the tightest MVP races we've ever seen. So it's cool for me either way. There's no tit for tat with that.
But it wasn't close. The voting was a complete and total blowout by Jokic. And I think that is why a lot of Philadelphia 76ers fans are so upset, is because that Jokic won so handily. And I think that's really, what was it, like 70-some to 20-some first place votes? Something like that. That was just embarrassing, in my opinion.
Yeah. And like, I mean, with Embiid, it's always the question of like, all right, cool. Like, are we going to be able to have another season where he's fully healthy and doing that again? So it's always like, oh my God, are we ever going to have another opportunity for him to have an MVP type season? Obviously, hopefully, that's not the case, and he will be healthy for the rest of his career. But it's always something in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah, no doubt. So what do you think about Tobias Harris? And if you're the Sixers, is there anything you can do with him? Obviously he had a decent postseason, but he always plays decent in comparison to the contract that he has. Yeah. So, in your eyes, what are you doing? Because like in my mind, obviously the optimistic view says, hey, move Tobias Harris and maybe you attach, a Matisse Thybulle or something, or draft picks, and hopefully get some role players to create some depth on the team. Do you think that that's anywhere close to possible? What do you think as far as Tobias Harris's value?
Just to clarify, how many years does he have on his contract again? Still two? Is it 2 or 3?
3. He's got 3 years left on his contract.
3.
Fully guaranteed too, right?
Yeah.
Full max,
man. Yikes, that's tough.
He was the highest paid player on the Sixers this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, keeping that in mind, I was going to say, like, maybe if it's like 2 years, I could see, because there's going to be a lot of salary moving around this year in the offseason. I feel like there's just going to be a lot of floating salary. You think of a guy like Jeremy Grant, right? That pops into mind, where it's like he's going to be an expiring. You move him, maybe you attach a pick to a Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is back in Detroit, right? So, like, I don't know. There are situations there where, like, if you guys are willing to give up a Matisse Thybulle, an extra pick, whatever that's going to be going on, then yes, you can go ahead and, try to move off of him. I think the best situation right now is like you hold out hope that Tobias, I mean, yes, compared to his contract is probably not performing, but I thought he had a pretty decent postseason. I thought he was a thorn in the Raptors' side in that first round series. He was really, really doing well. And I think, look, like, if for you guys, it's just health, man. It really is just health. It's making sure that Embiid is healthy, Harden is healthy, and Maxey stays healthy. Then you get the other guys to kind of coincide and work together. And filling in depth is an important part of this too. I don't know what way for you guys to address the depth other than maybe gutting some of your young players like a B-Ball Paul or Matisse and trying
Right.
to move off of them to like go ahead and get an extra guy that you can trust. But yeah, it's a tough situation for y'all, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like you said earlier, I think Phil, was it you know, like you kind of made your bed, right? You got to lie in it, right? And
Yeah, that's fair.
it's a situation. Hopefully it turns out. I know I'm sounding all doom and gloom for y'all. I apologize.
Hey, no, it is what it is. That's where we're at. We're confused, man. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I
Go
looked
ahead,
it up,
Scotty.
Phil. I looked up Tobias Harris' contract, and it looks like he only has 2 years left. So 2022 and 23 season, 2023 and 24 season, 2024 off season. He's an unrestricted free agent.
That's a lot more manageable. And like,
Yeah.
you know, the cap is going to be going up a little bit more incrementally now. So the pressure of his contract will be a little bit less moving forward too. I feel like that's okay.
But
2
it's
years, yeah.
It's a conundrum though. Like, do you get better if you are like desperately trying to move off of that? You know what I mean? That's what you have to ask yourself, and that's where they'll have to look in the mirror at some point in the off season.
All right. So finally here, Esfandair, Baraheni from the Score. Final prediction for the NBA Finals here on Trending in the AM.
I'm gonna stick with what I've been saying all week. Warriors in 6, Steph Curry Finals MVP. That's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a close 6 though. It's gonna be a close 6.
I like it, and that's probably where I'm leaning. But yeah, I like that prediction right there. Hey, everybody, I want to make sure everybody's giving you guys give you a shout out, give you a follow. I mean, like I said, we didn't start connecting till the Raptors Sixers series.
For sure.
But man, your work and your videos that you do, I mean, it's fantastic work, man. So I highly recommend it to anybody watching to check your stuff out and all. So keep up the good work here.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. And by the way, I see the I believe. Wait, correct me if I'm wrong. You got a nice jersey in the background there.
Which one? I got a lot of jerseys back there.
Yeah, I see it. I said no. I'm talking about the football jersey, number 65. Is that
Oh,
who I think it is?
that would be Lane Johnson, Eagles
Leighton
lineman.
Johnson. That's my guy. Yes.
Yeah.
sir.
Okay, Lane
Yeah.
Johnson
I
fan.
see them all. Okay,
I
I'm gonna let
wasn't
you go.
sure. I wasn't sure. But anyways, okay.
You're an NBA guy. I got to ask you a question because most people tell me I'm so awful for this. Hiding behind my shoulder, you can't see it on the air, is my Jimmy Butler Sixers jersey, and I still wear it in public. Is that a violation?
No, it's not a violation. It's a message to all the Philly fans.
That's
to
right.
be
Then
like,
he should
hey,
still be a Sixer.
He should still be a Sixer. By the way, we actually got a video coming out on that next week where it's like, go
Make sure you
for
tag
that.
me in that video so I don't miss it because I'm gonna be. I got a lot to say about Jimmy Butler still being a Sixer. So anyway, thanks very much for joining our show this morning. I greatly appreciate your time.
Nice meeting you, man.
Yeah, for
thanks.
sure. Appreciate you.
Have a great day. All right, that's us, Esfandair, Baraheni from the Score. Scotty, a lot to dissect there. We need hamstrings for James Harden, basically, and we got to pray to the gods, sacrifice a goat, and just make sure that something positive comes out of James Harden there.
Hey, that's what it feels like. He's speaking from an outside perspective where
And that's what I love.
he can speak freely. You know what I mean? And we are sitting here, we're kind of holding our tongue because we want things, and we do. There's a side of us that can see the light, right? There was a point in this season where we did look at each other and we're like, this team can win a championship with Harden and Embiid. And at some point, things got a lot. I shouldn't even say a little. It got really foggy in Philly as far as what this basketball team really is. And I think it's because when you see them in their truest form, and when I say truest form, that's in the biggest moments. And their truest form tended to come out in those big moments. And it's ultimately what cost them the season. And it just, if you just look at throughout the season, just some of the big games, the big markers where we looked at each other in the DSM chat and we said, it's 1 out of 82 games. We can't sit here and sell the farm over it. But those are those games that you build character, you build that winning mentality. I'm just thinking back to, a game against Boston where they got blown out by like 48 points or something, after the James Harden trade. And then the game in Milwaukee where, Embiid and Giannis go head to head and Giannis blocks Embiid up against the backboard for the game winning block. those type of games can define your season. They can define your character, because ultimately that game against Milwaukee is what I think lost Embiid the MVP award. I think if he would have won that game, if he outdueled Giannis, that solidifies him in that MVP race. And they just ended up not taking advantage of those moments, and you saw it play out in the playoffs. Look at the Toronto series. You're up 3-0 against them. You have a chance to get out of there 4-0. You have a chance to sweep them, and you don't even risk Embiid getting injured in that game 6. They weren't able to do that. They didn't, remain focused. They lost themselves in that big moment in game 4, and they didn't make it happen. So just looking down the line, there's just something in the culture and in the bloodline of this team that just isn't fulfilling its part, and it's hard to dissect what exactly it is.
Yeah, we're gonna pick up. I'm gonna bring you back on at some point this summer. We're gonna continue this Sixers talk.
Yeah,
we've got about 5 minutes left here in the show, so I want to get me and you. We got to get our finals predictions out here. So after listening to everything that me and you talked about, and after listening to Esfandair, what's your final prediction for this NBA Finals and how it's going to play out?
I will say he made some great points. You've made some great points throughout this show as well, Phil, which have me kind of leaning more towards Golden State. But I'm going to stick with my original gut feeling. And it's going to be gut wrenching because, let's be honest, we get into it with a lot of different fan bases. The Celtics fan base is unbearable, my man. But
it's tough to pick the Celtics to win an NBA Finals.
It's tough.
When you're a Sixers fan, it's really tough to make that statement.
It's hard for me to get it out right now. But yes, I am going to say Boston. I'm going to say Boston in 7. Jason Tatum, Finals MVP. I like what he said though, as far as it's going to come down to their guys hitting shots. If they can keep games close, Jason Tatum gives you a chance at winning every single game. But it's a matter of keeping things close, which we saw they couldn't do in every game against Miami.
I do want to mention on the Celtics, you had mentioned him earlier in the show, Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year. Marcus Smart, I don't like to admit it, but outside the stars, outside the Dame Lillard type, everybody knows how my affinity for Dame. And that's I would literally have traded. I think first time I was on your show 2 years ago, it was I would trade anything.
Yeah.
To bring Dame, even Embiid and Simmons back then. I just love Dame. Everybody knows that. But outside of that kind of stuff, Marcus Smart is one of my favorite NBA players. And I love what he brings to the table. I really do. But you said Celtics in 7. And if it goes 7 games, there is no chance the Celtics win. I think that game 7
in Golden State.
The Curry, the Clay, Steve Kerr, all the championship experience, and then you've got the Young and the Poole and the Wiggins that are, I don't think enough is talked about how Andrew Wiggins has transferred his game from having to be the go-to guy to now just being able to be that third, fourth guy and just play loosely, and how great Andrew Wiggins has played this year in Golden State. I think he's going to Golden State. I said it when he went to Golden State. That was the perfect fit for him.
He's turned into, he was asked to be this, like you said, a main scorer, a borderline superstar in Minnesota, right? He gets to Golden State. He's become one of the best 3-and-D guys in the league. And that's a great fit for him. And sometimes that's all it takes. We look at Tobias Harris, who has a similar contract to Andrew Wiggins, you could say. Andrew Wiggins is making the most of it by just fitting in where he's needed with the Warriors. Yeah. And that's a model Tobias could follow.
He kind of does exactly what we needed Tobias Harris to be.
Exactly.
A guy that fits in. Just knows his role and does it to perfection. And that's kind of what he does. Armchair checking in.
I like that play. I like that play because it would just be so ironic that he wins it instead of Steph Curry, even with Kevin Durant out off the team, right? It would be so ironic. So I do like that pick.
I might go throw $1 or 2 on that because I am predicting the Warriors. I say the only way the Celtics win the series is if they wrap it up in 5 or 6 games, and they better blow out. They need to come out and blow out the Warriors 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
what I mean? I don't think they can win a 6 or 7 game series against Golden State when every game's a knockdown, drag out brawl, because Golden State's experience is just way too high. So I got the Warriors winning in 6, but if the Celtics want to stand a chance, they better be able to wrap it up in 5 or 6. Because going to Game 7, if it's 3-2 Golden State and it's Game 6, it's probably a lock even at that point. So Celtics better come out and make a statement in Game 1.
Yeah.
Maybe even steal Game 1. If it's Game 1 Golden State and Golden State comes out and wins by 10, 15 points, it's a wrap in my mind. That is no disrespect meant to the Celtics. That is not my Sixers homerism coming out. But like I said, I saw on SportsCenter this morning, no team with their 2 leading scorers both being 25 or younger have ever won the NBA Finals. Because there's just something different when you get to the NBA Finals. And I think that experience level, which it's kind of scary because now the Celtics are going to get that experience level.
Yeah.
And next year, depending on what the Sixers do, the Celtics are going to be one of the favorites again to win or make it to the NBA Finals. So the Sixers are going to have a really tough road ahead for the foreseeable future between the Bucks and the Celtics, and who knows what the Heat do. So
and the Celtics, they have room to grow as well.
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Robert Williams, Grant Williams. I mean, these are all young guys that can still grow as well. And
Smart's their oldest guy. I mean, I know Horford is
literally.
Guy,
And I do just want to point out my bias for not Boston, but for Jason Tatum. Obviously, he's a Duke guy.
Right.
And you mentioned it. It's one of the biggest what ifs in Sixers history. I'm sure you would probably point to Jimmy Butler, and I would lean that way too. But you're talking about 2 of the biggest mistakes in Sixers history, recent history, I should say.
I mean, I still want to have shows talking about how can we get Jimmy Butler back to the Sixers this offseason.
How can we do it?
I'm still having that conversation on a regular basis on social media. There's got to be a way to get him back to Philly.
How can we do it, man?
I don't care. I want it. If we can find a way to ship Harden, a combo of Harden and Matisse.
Yeah, take Matisse off for him.
Take him. I don't care. Ship anybody on our bench. I don't care.
We could take Duncan Robinson. I know he has a bad contract. We could take him back in the deal to like make it kind of even.
Actually, that's funny. I did see something like that on social media. It was Butler and Duncan Robinson for Harden and Matisse, and I think one of our draft pick, whether it was this year or a future pick, I don't know.
Okay.
I did see something like that on social media, and I was like, dude, sign me up right now.
It would make Embiid, and I think it would make Embiid so happy too. You know what I mean? Like just to get him back. I mean, Sixers fans would be happy.
Yeah, checking in a little late there. We didn't even talk about the Nets there. One bit there, Philly. We don't need to talk about the Nets. We got enough problems here in Philly. Anyway, so Esfandair, Baraheni from The Score. He predicts Warriors. I got Warriors in 6. Scotty's got Celtics in 7. That's what we got for the NBA Finals. That's how it's going to end. We'll see. I like armchairs plus 14 NBA Finals MVP. Klay Thompson. I might go throw a shekel on that after the show. But Scotty, thanks for joining me this morning. I greatly appreciate it.
Of course. I will be back very soon whenever you'll have me. So just
make
let
sure
me know.
Scotty at Scotty Drowned, my man. Make sure you shoot me a follow at Bearded Knowledge on Twitter, DSM Media. Subscribe, follow, retweet, share. You know the drill, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Jason Voorhees, Mark Moscatelli on a Friday. And unless Joe Girardi's fired today, we will talk no Philly again tomorrow. It'll be all football. We got lots of Eagles topics. I already have the initial question title pre-planned out in my head. Scotty, this is what the title. We're going to start tomorrow's conversation. What Eagles player, not named Jalen Hurts, taking the next step forward in their development is most important for the crucial success of the Eagles next season? Not named Jalen Hurts, because everyone knows everything is on Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
What guy
Good
not named
question.
Jalen Hurts? That's going to be the question to start off tomorrow's Football Friday right here on Trending the AM. So again, make sure you're locked in, tapped in, subscribe, notifications on. Everybody have a great day. I guess it's Warriors in 6.